sitting in it when it was in full session. But these days, we can't go into it. It doesn't look really much like it did back in the 18th century. And it's just offices in the bank that owns these buildings. But this room, this chamber, has been pretty much perfectly preserved for the past 250 years or so. So it looks much the way it did when it was used as a parliament. Now, there's one or two important things to tell you about this parliament. Firstly, it wasn't a representative parliament, meaning that the politicians who sat in here and in the Commons, they didn't represent the interests of all of the people on the island. Now, the population of the country, back in the 18th century, would have looked something like this. About 80% Roman Catholic, so the masses were Catholic, about 10% non-conformist Protestant, so evangelical Protestants, mostly Presbyterian, and about 10% Anglican. Now, to begin with, only the Anglicans could vote, only the Anglicans could sit in the Parliament. And of course, not all the Anglicans, just the men and just the very wealthy, influential men. So about 2% of the population controlled 100% of the political power. Now, obviously, that's a fairly imbalanced, unjust system. And the story behind how it came to pass is intensely complicated. So I'm going to try and simplify it for you just a little bit. And these tapestries, these magnificent tapestries, should help you do that. If you take a look over here at this one, you'll see the gentleman sitting on the white horse in the foreground. That's James II. Now, James was the King of England in the 1680s, and he wasn't a very popular king. Now, he was unpopular for lots of different reasons, but the main reason is that he was a Roman Catholic. He had converted to Roman Catholicism. Now, Britain at this stage was a staunchly Protestant country, so they weren't really interested in having a Roman Catholic leader, particularly one who was as obnoxious and ambitious as James II. So what ended up happening was in 1688, this gentleman over here in this tapestry, on the brown horse in the foreground there, William III, or William of Orange, a Dutch prince who'd married James's daughter Mary, he came over from the Netherlands with a huge Dutch army, and he said to his father-in-law, "Either you leave now, or I'm going to kill you." So James fled, and he went to France, but later on he came to Ireland, and he started rallying Catholic support over here. Now this event, where William took the throne from his father-in-law, in British history it's known as the Glorious Revolution. And one of the reasons it's called glorious is because it was quite peaceful. It was a sort of a bloodless coup d'etat. And Margaret Thatcher was very fond of telling French diplomats back in the 1980s that the French Revolution was awful and terrible because it was extremely violent, and the English Revolution was great, it was peaceful. Now, in that country, it was quite peaceful. In this country, tens of thousands of people were killed during something called the Williamite Wars, which were fought between James II, who led the Catholic armies, and William III, or William of Orange, who led the Protestant armies. Now, the tapestries show us two events that happened during this period. Over here, this is the siege of Derry, or as it says at the top there, the glorious defence of Londonderry. Please, while you're in this part of the country, if you have occasion to refer to that city, don't call it Londonderry. Anyway, the buildings in the background, that's Derry City, and the Protestant people of the city were besieged by the Catholic armies from about April to July of 1689. And really it was more like a blockade. They stopped ships coming up the river to relieve the citizens. So the siege or the blockade was broken in July, the people of the city were relieved, and to this day in Northern Ireland, it's seen by the pro-British Unionist community as a great victory, a great Protestant victory, because they withstood the Catholic threat. Now, over here, this event occurred roughly a year after the siege of Derry. This is the Battle of the Boyne, happened in early July 1690. Now, the Boyne Valley is just north of Dublin. You could travel to it in less than an hour, and it's worth seeing, because those ancient buildings, Newgrange and Doubt, they're up near there too. Now, the battle that occurred there, it probably wasn't the most critical battle of these wars, the most important, but it's the one everyone remembers, the one everyone talks about, because both kings were present on the battlefield. Both of these men were there. Now, both James and William were quite good military leaders. Both of them were also quite brave. They accompanied their troops into battle and that kind of thing. But there was just something about James that people didn't like. He was sort of an obnoxious figure. William III, on the other hand, tended to be very charismatic, good at drawing people to him, rallying men to the cause, and he was quite good at winning battles too. So most of the battles during these wars resulted in Williamite victories. They were won by the Protestant armies, which meant two things. It meant for the next few centuries in Ireland you had British rule, and you also had something called the Protestant ascendancy. So if you can imagine the social scene in Ireland as sort of a pyramid, you had a small number of Anglicans at the top, the other Protestants in the middle, and the Catholics, the masses, at the bottom. Which meant when this Parliament was established in 1739, it was really only for Anglicans.